the city municipality of Portmore making 7, which is the same number as the JLP have, but we have one more division than they do. So there's been a kind of process over the 5 years of building an improvement, which I think was reflected in the 97,000 additional votes that we got and the 14 additional seats that we won. Now, going forward, you mentioned the Treasury. I mean, we got, I would say, good support from the donor base that we have, corporate and individual. We were able to finance our program. We didn't have the sort of additional resources for deploying in the field to do the sort of things that we were up against, and that was never part of our budget anyway. We weren't seeking to do that. That's not a strategy that we employ. But, in terms of being able to pay our media houses for the advertising that we had booked and developing that advertising and paying our party workers, for their efforts and the paraphernalia and so on that we were, we were able to hold our own. And going forward, we will just be encouraging Jamaica to understand the importance of maintaining financial balance in how they fund political parties, because if one party has excessive resources relative to the other, it can affect the democratic outcome of elections quite easily. So, these are the sort of arguments that we impress upon donors, and we have been, we get good response for the most part. So I don't have any issue really there with the fundraising side of the campaign.
Yes. Good. All right. Greetings to all at the press table. President MG, this one is for you, sir.
Who is this?
I am Baba Tunde's Stargate Communications. Before I get into my questions, I would just like to start on a positive by saying there are some things that you initiated that changed the experience for the Rastafari community, especially with the ganja experience and all. Only more than if we do, but we must acknowledge when positive moves made. We acknowledge that. So we kick off the party. So the first question, seeing all of what we see now, maybe some 8-9 days after the election, was the People's National Party fully prepared? I have 2 more. I can know if I have a pause and answer or go with the other 2 and then.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we didn't ultimately win the election suggests that there are areas where our preparation could have been stronger. I think that what we have come to realize going through this experience is that some of the tactics that we have to manage are not normal orthodox in the book tactics, but are things that are being deployed quite effectively by our opponent, which we haven't yet, I think, mastered a methodology of responding to. So I think I would say, what would you regard as the orthodox way in which campaigns are conducted and way political organization is done, we were ready. But in terms of specific seats, which though those tactics were being deployed, our response to them was inadequate.
All right. So in your preparation going forward, it's a little bit of small advice that you don't have to pay for. Art of war must be studied. Next question for you now, President MG. The positive way forward, and there are aspects of your manifesto that are tangible and excellent. What plans are in place to not wait till 2030, but to One, empower the people and implement where it can. Much appreciated for listening. You got those?
Yeah, I mean, in response, I think that I need to actually say something about that. Our manifesto was our series of policy proposals and programs that we had intended to roll out during the first five-year term that we were in government. Those things require being in government to be rolled out. An opposition party gets no state resources to implement plans and programs. We get a modest stipend as MPs to run a constituency office, and that's it. And then there's a CDF, which is a modest sum which hasn't been adjusted for inflation for many years now, of 20 million a year, out of which 1.5 million pays an administrator. So it's 8.5 million to be spent in a constituency with residents typically exceeding 40,000 people. So, I don't want to pretend that the opposition will be in a position to roll out things like the First in Family Scholarship or build 50,000 housing units at an affordable price for people, or to implement rent to own to enable persons who are currently excluded from the mortgage market to become owners of their own home, or indeed a disability fund to help persons with disabilities with $1 billion in it, and those sort of things. Those are things we want to do with reform government. What we will be able to do is individual MPs who have won will be able to pursue their own particular set of policies that they had brought to the people. Some of them will take time. It won't happen overnight. Resources are always an issue. And to the extent they're able to garner additional support through creative methods of fundraising and using the goodwill of people who might want to support those initiatives, that will determine how quickly they can do what they want to do. But it's going to be more on a constituency and MP level that you'll see things happening rather than nationally, because an opposition party is not able to, or indeed expected to, implement national policies. That's for the government of the day.
Just two more, one for Anthony Hilton and one for you, Mr. Golding. Mr. Hilton, you put forward the suggestion comparing Jamaica's electoral process to that of Guyana, which has a history now of concerns about the process. Whereas here in Jamaica, we had the OAS, CARICOM, as well as CAFE, all suggesting that the elections were free of harassment, free of intimidation, or any other irregularities, so far as going as to commending us in terms of our conduct here and to put forward Jamaica as a model that the Caribbean can follow. Isn't that a bit out of sorts in terms of that assessment by you in terms of irregularities? And to you, Mr. Golding, your predecessors have all offered their resignations to the wider party following an election loss. Will you not do the same, or will you simply take up your post as opposition leader going into the parliament?
Well, let me
Hmm.
well, you want-
No, I'll go,
and
sir.
let me say, I think that the aspects, I think, no, I don't think what you characterize as overstatement, notwithstanding anything that has been said by CAFE or any other organization that participated. The EU focus, and I'd urge you, and I think you have read the EU report. And if you have, then you'll see that they commented on some other aspects of it, much of which we saw
Here.
in full force here in Jamaica.
Mhm.
The issue that we believe needs to be addressed as an urgent matter is the whole issue of the advertising and promotion before and during the campaign with we believe excessive state resources. And that aspect of it and others were specifically commented on. So my advice is that whatever the specific limitations or the concerns that the OAS or other um, monitoring group didn't address, the EU's report, I believe, was much broad-based and some of it very relevant to Jamaica.
If I may add something to that before the leader answers the next question. I think we've been very responsible as a party. I think we've been very responsible. Nationwide carried a story that Cafe said that 21% of the persons at the polling station at 5 o'clock were not allowed to vote. We could easily have created a stir with that to suggest that those persons would have voted for us and it would have changed the outcome of the elections. We didn't. We waited for good information, right? For additional information. And we have seen where over the last 2 days, the ECG has refuted what was carried as to what Cafe had said. And then since that, Cafe today in the paper is clarifying that that did not actually take place. So I believe the comment that was made as well was not necessarily comparing the electoral systems in the two countries, but about the report that came out of the election. So I don't know how you got to the point of saying he was comparing the two electoral systems. He was speaking to the report that came out and said that there are similarities that we have seen the same thing here. Cafe, CARICOM, and other OAS, other persons that came here would not have been out in the field to see that $100,000 was offered to an indoor agent not to work or offered to a cluster manager to give me the canvas of this party. They would not have seen that. They would not have seen what took place in the field. They would have been at the polling station, right? They would not have seen the night before that somebody was offered money to dip their finger in ink and therefore can't show up to the polling station. They would not have seen where we saw some persons, MPs, trying to separate people into lines as to who you are going to vote for, totally inappropriate, right? From a high-ranking member of the Jamaica Labour Party. So the issues that we're bringing forward here are things that we have contemplated on, we've heard about, and not just anecdotal things, but things that we can say, these based on the reports that we've gotten, and there's additional work to do, but there is sufficient evidence to speak to it at this point to suggest that there was indeed an attempt to suppress the votes. Remember that we did run a campaign, where the last credible poll that came out before the election had us ahead by 3 percentage points, right? Not like the one from Nationwide that said we're 13 points behind. That was totally fraudulent, right? And if you look at the outcome of the elections, it was within 1%, as in the popular vote. So it was within that margin of error. And that is after all the suppression that took place by the Labour Party and the delayed voting by the ECJ that caused persons to leave the polling station and not being able to participate.
In relation to, well, first of all, I'm not aware of any historic precedent of which you speak. There have been instances where party leaders have offered their resignation. There have been instances where they haven't, to my knowledge. I serve at the pleasure of the party, and I'm happy to continue to serve in the capacity as leader for as long as the party wants me to. And thus far, all of the MPs who have been elected, all 28, other than one who's overseas traveling, have signed a letter confirming that they have confidence in me and want me to be the leader of the opposition.
Right.
And that's where it is right now.
If I may add, again, if I may just add something to that. I want for us not to mislead the public with some of the statements. There are some things that are being said in the public space that are just not true. Andrew Holness was defeated by Portia Simpson Miller in 2011. It seems persons have forgotten that. He did not resign, nor did he offer any resignation. He stayed there. He did not even make public the appraisal committee report that was done, right? 10 of the 21 MPs signed a no confidence in him. He's the one that saved himself with his casting vote. I also hear persons saying that it's historic, unprecedented, this third term. When they say one complain about the PNP being in office for 18 years, the PNP has won 4 consecutive elections in Jamaica. So what is historic? It's historic for the JLP that they have won 3 elections. It's not historic for Jamaica. PJ Patterson won in 93, 97, and 2002. Why do we continue to mislead the public in this vulgar manner?
Mark, I just heard what you said. It's one thing to be endorsed by the party and have the party's confidence, but do you yourself, do you want to lead the party? And then secondly, I'd like to follow up and saying, you don't really want to, as a party, enter another period of fractiousness, internecine warfare that splinters the party. I think you've been an MP since 2007.
2017.
2017, beg your pardon. You brought the party back. It seems united. You fell short. You've doubled your seats. I mean, that I think will go down in history. But do you want to lead the charge? It's all very well being endorsed. You seem to have a good support team around you. But in your heart of hearts, do you want to lead the charge going forward? And secondly, I'd say that you seem to have a deep bench, both in the lower house. What are your plans for the upper house? A lot of bright people around, a lot of people who can take positions. How do you want to lead them and how do you want to deploy it?
Well, I'm not going to comment on the composition of the Senate, which is, you'll hear more very shortly on that. In terms of my own personal aspirations, Al, I feel a continued commitment to my country, Jamaica, where I was born and where I've lived all of my life other than when I was studying abroad, and which has been very good to me, and which my parents, instilled in me a sense of service to the people of Jamaica. And I am willing to continue and plan to continue to serve my country through the political process as leader of the People's National Party, moving ahead, going forward from the significant achievements that we have managed to garner in these elections to a victorious result next time round. And as I said, I serve at the will of the party. And so as long as the party has confidence in me to continue, I will be here.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope it was informative and have a great day.